Right now, you're being chased by something that doesn't exist. It sounds impossible, I know, but as you listen, a shadow walks behind you, a shadow you've never quite seen directly, always there, at the edge of your vision, always present when you least expect it. And what if I told you Eckhart Tolle discovered something that can make this shadow vanish? Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. In the next few minutes. Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest that comes out of nowhere? That feeling that something terrible is about to happen, but you can't identify what? It's like your mind is an endless echo of a voice whispering dangers that never arrive. Eckhart Tolle spent years of his life paralyzed by this same shadow. He says he reached the point of considering that life wasn't worth living. Anxiety had become his constant companion. Fear, his only faithful friend. Until one night, something extraordinary happened. He was in his apartment in London, immersed in what he describes as the deepest abyss of despair. And then, like lightning cutting through the darkness, a question arose in his mind. Who is thinking these thoughts of fear? In that moment, he realized something that would change not only his life, but the lives of millions of people around the world. You want to know what he discovered? The discovery was as simple as it was devastating. The fear that tormented him wasn't real, not in the way you imagine. It was real as a sensation, real as an experience, but completely unreal as a threat. Think with me for a moment. When was the last time you felt fear? I'm not talking about seeing a dangerous animal in front of you. I'm talking about that fear that lives in your head, the one that wakes you up in the middle of the night, the one that makes you question your decisions. Now answer me, what exactly were you afraid of? If you stop to analyze deeply, you will discover something disturbing. Your fear is never about the present moment. It's never about what's happening now. It's always about something that could happen, something that might happen, something that your mind projects into a future that doesn't yet exist. Eckhart Tolle realized he was being tormented by ghosts, ghosts of imagined futures, like a shadow that seems real until you try to touch it. But here's the insight that will change everything for you. If fear only exists in an imaginary future, what's happening when you feel fear in the present? You're experiencing an illusion in real time. It's like watching a horror movie and forgetting that you're only watching a movie. Your body reacts. Your heart races. Your hands sweat. But the monster on the screen can't touch you. It never could. It never will. The human mind is a story-making machine, and the most powerful stories it creates are stories of fear, because fear ensured our survival for millions of years. When one of our ancestors heard a noise in the forest, it was better to imagine it was a predator than to discover too late that it really was. But you don't live in the forest anymore. The dangers your mind imagines today are echoes of an ancestral alarm system going off falsely, like a smoke detector that goes off every time you make toast. Eckhart discovered that when you can observe fear as a neutral observer, something magical happens. Fear loses its power. It's like turning on the light and discovering that the monster under the bed was just a pile of clothes. Have you ever had the experience of waking up from a nightmare and feeling that immense relief when you realize that none of it was real? That's exactly what happens when you wake up from the nightmare your mind has created about the future. But how do you do this in practice? Tolle developed a technique so simple that it seems too simple. When fear arises in your mind, ask a question. Where is the danger now? Not where it might be tomorrow. Not where it was yesterday. Where is it now? Look around you. Examine the present moment with the precision of a detective. Are you in real physical danger this very second? Is your house on fire? Is someone attacking you? Are you falling off a cliff? In the vast majority of cases, the answer will be no. And that's where the magic happens. When you realize that there is no real danger in the present, your nervous system receives crucial information. You are safe now. And now is the only moment that truly exists. The past is memory. The future is imagination. Only the present is real. But your mind doesn't want to accept that. It's addicted to protecting you from imaginary dangers. It's like a paranoid security guard who sees threats in every shadow. He wants to keep you safe, but he ended up keeping you prisoner. Tolle learned to talk to that part of his mind the way you would talk to a scared child. With kindness, but with firmness. Thank you for trying to protect me, he would say to his thoughts of fear. But I'm safe now. And do you know what happens when you do this consistently? The shadow that was chasing you begins to fade. The echo of the frightening voice becomes fainter and fainter, not because you fought against them, but because you stopped feeding them with your desperate attention. It's like stopping throwing wood on a fire. Without fuel, it simply goes out. But there's a secret that Tolle discovered that can accelerate this process, a secret he calls radical acceptance of the present moment. It seems contradictory, but to destroy fear, you must first accept it completely. When fear arises, don't try to run away from it. Don't try to fight against it. Don't try to convince your mind that it's wrong. Simply observe, like a scientist observing an interesting specimen. Look, you might think, my mind is creating fear again. How fascinating! Without judgment, without resistance, just pure observation. And here's the paradox that may sound impossible. When you stop resisting fear, it loses its reason for being. It's like trying to fight your own shadow. The more you fight with it, the more movement it has. When you stop fighting, it simply becomes motionless. Eckhart Tolle discovered that fear is like an emotional bully. It only has power as long as you believe it is stronger than you. The moment you realize it's just noise, the noise stops. But maybe you're thinking, nah, that's all very nice in theory, but I have real fears. Fear of losing my job, fear of being rejected, fear of not being able to pay the bills. And Tolle would tell you, you're right. These are possible scenarios, but answer me one thing. Will feeling afraid about them today prevent them from happening? If you intensely worry now, will you be better prepared to handle things if they happen? The brutal truth is fear doesn't prepare you for anything. It paralyzes you, it steals your energy, it makes you make worse decisions. It's like trying to drive looking only in the rearview mirror, hoping to avoid accidents that may never happen. Tolle learned to distinguish between intelligent precaution and paralyzing fear. Precaution is, I'll save money in case I lose my job. Fear is, what if I lose my job and can't pay my bills and become homeless and nobody loves me? One motivates you to action. The other freezes you in place. The difference lies in the quality of your attention. When your attention is in the present, you can act. When it's on the imagined future, you can only suffer. And maybe now you understand why Tolle calls fear an illusion, not because the consequences can't be real, but because the suffering you feel today about something that may never happen is completely unnecessary. It's like crying today over the death of someone who is alive and healthy beside you. Let me tell you about Emily, one of the people who applied Tolle's discovery to real life. Emily was 34, and for over a decade lived with a constant fear of not being good enough. This fear manifested in different ways. At work, she checked every email 10 times before sending. In relationships, she interpreted every silence as rejection. In social gatherings, she rehearsed every word before speaking. Emily's life was a minefield of imagined future humiliations until she encountered Tolle's teachings and decided to do a radical experiment. For a week, every time fear arose, she would ask a simple question: is anyone rejecting me right now? On the first day, this question caught her off guard 47 times. 47 times she was suffering from rejections that weren't happening. It was like discovering she had spent years running away from ghosts. On the second day, it was 23 times. On the third, 11. And by the end of the week, something extraordinary happened. She realized that the voice whispering, "You're not good enough," was simply quiet. Not because she fought against it, but because she stopped believing it was true. That's what Tolle wants you to understand. Your fear isn't the problem. The problem is that you believe it's real. It's like being afraid of the monster in a movie and forgetting you can turn off the TV at any time. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Tolle discovered that there isn't just one type of fear. There are layers of fear, like Russian nesting dolls, one inside the other. The first layer is the obvious fear. Fear of heights, fear of public speaking, fear of spiders. These are easy to identify because they have a name and form. The second layer is more subtle. It's the fear of feeling fear. Anxiety about anxiety, panic about having a panic attack, but it's like being afraid of your own shadow. But the third layer is the deepest and most devastating. It's the fear of not existing. The fear that if you're not constantly worried, vigilant, controlling, something terrible will happen. It's the fear that you need fear to survive. And that is the most powerful illusion of all. Tolle spent years in this third layer. He believed that without the constant vigilance of his anxious mind, he would be destroyed by the world. It was like believing that if he stopped holding up the ceiling with his hands, the whole building would collapse. But when he finally let go, nothing happened. The world kept spinning, people kept living, life kept flowing, and he realized the most liberating truth of all. You don't need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You never did. Imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you knew, with absolute certainty, that you are safe. Not safe that nothing bad will ever happen, but safe that you have the capacity to handle anything that happens. How would you feel? How would you act? What decisions would you make? Tolle discovered that when you stop spending energy fighting ghosts, an incredible amount of vital power becomes available to you. It's like discovering you've been driving with the parking brake on your entire life, but there's something even deeper happening here. When you free yourself from fear, you don't just stop suffering. You begin to live in a completely new way. Without the constant vigilance of fear, you can finally be present. You can taste the food you're eating. You can truly hear the music that's playing. You can look into the eyes of someone you love and be completely there. It's like taking off blurry glasses you didn't even know you were wearing. Tolle calls this awakening, not in a religious or mystical sense, although it might seem that way, but in the most practical sense possible. It's literally waking up from the dream that you need to be afraid to be safe. And here's the part that may seem impossible. This can happen now. Not after years of therapy, not after reading a whole library of self-help books. Now, because the insight isn't complicated. It's so simple that your mind will try to reject it for being too simple, but the most powerful truths always are simple. Want to try it? Let's do it together. Close your eyes for a moment, or if you can't close them, just relax your gaze, breathe naturally, and ask yourself this question: where is the danger now? Not theoretically, not philosophically, literally. Where is the danger that requires your attention in this exact second? If you did this honestly, you probably discovered something surprising. At this moment, you are safe. You may not be safe from all future possibilities, but now, at this moment, you are fine. And if you can truly absorb this, not just understand it intellectually, but feel it in your body, you've just taken the first step toward the freedom Tolle discovered. But this is only the beginning. Because what you've discovered about the illusory nature of fear is only the gateway to something much bigger. Are you beginning to see the shadow for what it really is? Are you beginning to realize that the echo that haunts you comes from a place that doesn't exist? Because if you are, you're about to discover how to transform this understanding into a practical tool that can change your life in the next few minutes. And more importantly, you'll discover why Tolle believes mastering this skill is the key to everything you really want in life. Let me show you exactly how to do that. Tolle developed what he calls the 3-second technique. It's so simple you can use it right now while you're listening to me, and it's so powerful. It can shatter fear patterns you've carried for decades. It works like this. When you feel any kind of anxiety or fear rising, you have a 3-second window to change everything. In those 3 seconds, you ask 3 specific questions. Each question takes only a second, but each carries the power to completely dismantle the illusion. First second, is this happening now? Second second, where do I feel this in my body? Third second, can I breathe through this? Seems too simple to work. Let me tell you about Robert. Robert was a 42-year-old executive who had developed panic attacks so severe he could no longer enter elevators. Every time the doors closed, his mind conjured catastrophic scenarios. What if the elevator breaks down? What if I get trapped? What if no one hears me scream? He tried therapy, medication, breathing techniques. Nothing worked because he was fighting ghosts until he discovered Tolle. The first time Robert used the 3-second technique, something extraordinary happened. When the elevator doors closed and the panic started to rise, he asked the 3 questions. Is this happening now? He looked around. The elevator was functioning perfectly. He was safe. The answer was no. Where do I feel this in my body? He noticed the fear manifested as tension in his chest and a tightness in his throat. It wasn't something attacking him from the outside. It was something he was creating internally. Can I breathe through this? He took a deep breath and realized the air was flowing in and out normally. His body was functioning perfectly. In those 3 seconds, Robert made a life-changing discovery. He wasn't in danger. He never was. His mind had created a prison made of imagined futures. But here's the most interesting part. Robert didn't just stop having panic attacks. He discovered something even more valuable. When you stop spending energy fighting illusions, you have so much more energy to create the life you really want. 6 months later, Robert had asked for a raise he'd been putting off for years, started the relationship he'd been avoiding for fear of rejection, and launched the business he'd always dreamed of. Not because he became brave, but because he stopped being unnecessarily cowardly. And that's the crucial difference Tolle wants you to understand. It's not about eliminating all fear. It's about eliminating the fears that serve no real purpose. Imagine your mind as an alarm system. A good alarm system protects you from real dangers and stays quiet when there's no danger. A faulty alarm system goes off constantly, keeping you in a state of perpetual alert. Most people live with completely faulty alarm systems. They go off when you're safe in your bed. They go off when you're talking to friends. They go off when you're trying to make an important decision. Tolle teaches you how to recalibrate your alarm system, and here's the most powerful technique he developed. He calls it conscious separation. It's the process of learning to distinguish between yourself and your fearful thoughts. Most people believe they are their thoughts. When a fearful thought arises, they think, "I'm afraid." But Tolle discovered something revolutionary. You are not your thoughts. You are the one observing the thoughts. It's like the difference between being the actor in the movie and being the person watching the movie. The actor lives everything as if it were real. The person watching knows it's just a story. When you learn to be the observer of your fearful thoughts, something magical happens. They lose their power to control you. It's like discovering you always had the remote control, but forgot where you put it. Let's practice this now. Think of something that causes you anxiety. It can be something small. It doesn't have to be your biggest fear, just something that makes you a little uncomfortable. Now, instead of thinking, "I'm anxious," try thinking, "I'm observing anxious thoughts arising." Feel the difference. In the first case, you are the anxiety. In the second, you are the one observing the anxiety. It's a subtle difference, but a transformative one. It's the difference between being drowning and standing on a beach watching the waves. Tolle took years to master this completely, but he discovered that even small moments of this conscious separation can shatter decades-old patterns. And there's something even deeper happening here. When you become the observer of your fears, you automatically connect with a part of yourself that has never been afraid, the part that has always been calm, always been safe, always known you'd be okay. Tolle calls this part presence. Others call it intuition, inner wisdom, or simply peace. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that it has always been there, waiting for you to stop running from the ghosts long enough to notice it. And here's the secret that will accelerate this entire process. Most people try to get rid of fear by fighting it. But Tolle discovered that's like trying to stop an echo by shouting louder. The echo only gets more intense. The most powerful technique is what he calls conscious hospitality. Instead of rejecting fear when it arises, you welcome it as a temporary guest. "Hello, fear," you might say mentally. "I see you're here. You can stay for a few minutes if you need to, but I'm not going to make decisions based on what you tell me." Seems contradictory. Here's why it works. When you resist fear, you're giving it energy. It's like winding up a tantrum-throwing child. When you simply acknowledge its presence without reacting, it loses interest and goes away naturally. It's like leaving a barking dog alone instead of yelling at it to stop. Eventually, it gets tired and stops on its own. But there's an even deeper layer to this Tolle discovery. He realized that often, behind the fear, there's wisdom trying to communicate with you. Sometimes, what you call fear is actually your intuition trying to protect you from a genuinely harmful situation. Sometimes, it's your body telling you need to rest. Sometimes, it's your soul telling you you're living in a way that's not authentic. When you stop fighting fear and start listening to it with curiosity, you can distinguish between useful fear and useless fear. Useful fear says, "Don't cross the street without looking." Useless fear says, "Everyone will judge you if you speak up in that meeting." Useful fear protects you from real dangers. Useless fear protects you from growth. And Tolle created a specific technique to make this distinction. He calls it the wisdom question. When a fear arises, instead of automatically rejecting it or obeying it, ask yourself this: if I removed all the emotional drama from this situation, Is there any practical action I should take? If the answer is yes, and take the action. If the answer is no, you know you're dealing with a ghost. For example, you're worried about your finances. The wisdom question would be, if I removed all the anxiety about money, is there any practical action I should take? Maybe the answer is yes, I should create a budget and save more. Great. Take that action. Or maybe it's, no, my finances are well managed, and I'm just creating unnecessary drama. Also, great. Now you know you can let the worry go. This technique transforms unproductive anxiety into productive action, or well-deserved peace. But let me tell you about Tolle's most surprising discovery. After years of helping people free themselves from fear, he noticed an interesting pattern. The people who mastered these techniques didn't just stop suffering unnecessarily. They started living extraordinary lives, not because they became bold or reckless, but because they had access to all the energy they previously spent fighting ghosts. It's like discovering you had a huge leak in your water tank and finally fixing it. Suddenly, there's enough water for everything you need. Sarah, a 28-year-old artist, is a perfect example. She had spent 5 years trying to write a book, but every time she sat down to write, her mind bombarded her with thoughts like, "This is terrible. Nobody will want to read this. You have no talent." After learning Tolle's techniques, Sarah realized something liberating. These thoughts weren't truths about her writing. They were just echoes of criticisms she had internalized years ago. With the 3-second technique and conscious separation, Sarah managed to write for 2 hours straight for the first time in years, and in 6 months, she had finished her first book. Was the book good? That wasn't even the point. The point was that she had freed herself from the prison her own mind had built. And that's the promise Tolle makes. Not that you'll have a life without challenges, but that you'll stop creating unnecessary challenges. Not that nothing bad will ever happen, but that you'll stop suffering for bad things that never happen. Not that you'll become courageous, but that you'll stop being a coward when there's no reason to be. And here's the most beautiful part of it all. When you free yourself from the prison of illusory fear, you don't just change your own life. You change the lives of everyone around you. Free people inspire freedom. When you stop radiating constant anxiety, the people around you can relax too. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. The light doesn't just benefit you. Tolle believes that every person who awakens from the illusion of fear is contributing to a collective awakening. Every person who stops feeding ghosts is making the world a slightly saner place. And perhaps that's the most important responsibility you have, not just to yourself, but to all the people your energy touches. Remember the shadow that was chasing you at the beginning. Remember the echo that whispered non-existent dangers. Now you know what they really are. Not enemies to fight, not truths to obey, just illusions to recognize. And the moment you recognize them for what they are, they stop having power over you. It's like discovering the monster under the bed was your imagination all along. The difference is that now you no longer need to be afraid of the dark. The freedom Tolle discovered that night in London wasn't just for him. It was for anyone willing to question the reality of their fears. And that person can be you, right now, at this moment, because the shadow was never real. The echo never came from anywhere, and you were always stronger than any ghost your mind could create. The question was never whether you can free yourself from fear. The question has always been, when will you stop choosing to remain a prisoner of something that never existed?